Hello and welcome. I'm Marian Pyle. Thanks for joining us here at Winning at Love. This uplifting video series is designed to honor God and provide guidance and encouragement to Christian singles about dating, romance, and finding the right partner in life. Winning at Love brings you 8 deeply personal and inspiring testimonies told by Christian couples who took a risk, faced their fears, persevered through the setbacks, and won the heart of the one they loved. We trust you'll be blessed. Here now is Winning at Love.
Winning at Love, spirit-filled stories about dating and romance.
Trevor Miller's home life wasn't always easy. With 2 divorces in the family, he moved frequently, and the dynamics between the siblings and step-siblings were often challenging. Fortunately, his involvement with Christian ministry, church friends, and high school mentors brought him much-needed stability. Trevor became an architecture student at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. The week that Hurricane Katrina struck, he volunteered to help with relief efforts. He would soon find out that the storm was not the only thing that turned things upside down. A beautiful girl named Ally was part of Trevor's team. When they returned to school, the friendship got off to an awkward start. Trevor soon learned that pursuing Ally would require a level of maturity and endurance he never anticipated. But these things only confirmed deep in his heart why she was exactly the right woman for him. When Ally Miller was in 2nd grade, she asked her father, "If there's no such thing as sin, why are there so many bad things in the world?" Being an agnostic, her father's answer left her dissatisfied. So for the next few years, Ally visited all her friends' churches and temples of many faiths. Nothing transformed her heart until she heard and embraced the gospel of Christ. Her passion for God grew so strong that in 7th grade, Ally saved all her babysitting money, bought herself a Bible, and got involved in group studies, church retreats, and mission trips. As a young adult, Ally moved to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo to study child development and psychology. Her faith grew dramatically, and when a young man named Trevor began asking her out, Ally made an unusual request, a request she knew would not only test his character, but either make or break the relationship. This is Trevor and Ally.
All right, I'm Trevor Miller.
I'm Ally Miller.
So I dated this girl for a year and a half and just kind of got to a point where I realized like this just isn't the woman that I'm going to marry, and I feel like the Lord made that really clear to me. And so it was actually a really difficult breakup. Coming into freshman year of college, I just decided like I need to focus on my relationship with the Lord and not get caught up with the dating scene and that whole thing. It's really getting into these really solid relationships with other guys.
I also had a high school relationship, and we dated almost 2 years, a year and a half. And it just wasn't a healthy relationship, and again, the breakup was really hard as well. It wasn't a very pure relationship either, and so after that breakup, I think I was just really afraid to date, and I was scared of guys, and one thing I told myself was I'm not going to date anyone again until it was going to be my husband, just because I didn't want to get hurt again. And so that was kind of where I was at. I knew that I wanted to marry a Christian man, but I didn't grow up in a Christian home, so I wasn't quite sure what that looked like, to marry someone who followed hard after the Lord and who was going to lead me spiritually. But I feel like at that time, the Lord was teaching me a lot about what he looked like as my husband. I feel like for so long I saw God as my father figure, and for the very first time he was starting to like woo my heart and to teach me that I was his bride. And I thought I was just learning a lot in that time going into college of what it looked like to just love the Lord and to stay away from guys for a long time, and it's kind of where I was at.
we were both supposed to go on the hurricane relief trip when Hurricane Katrina happened, and her group of friends and my group of friends were gonna caravan together and drive out to Louisiana. I was getting really excited because I met her when we were kind of talking about logistics, and I was like, sweet, like I'm gonna get to like drive out with this girl and, you know, get to know her.
I didn't remember meeting him at all.
She had no idea who I was at all.
So after the trip, after the spring break trip, he'd already met me, and I apparently had already met him, but I didn't remember. And we would pass each other, like, at school, like, to and from the dorms and classes, and he'd always say hi, like, hey, how's it going? And I'd be like, hi, how are you?
I try to, like, stop her and keep her as long as I can until she, like, had to go.
And I kept going, and he just did it every day, so I started telling my girlfriends, like, this guy's super nice, but I think he thinks I'm someone else. Like, I don't know if I should tell him. I must look really similar to someone. So that happened for a long time, to the point we actually like had conversations like, how's it going? How's your day? Good. And I was like, there's no way he can think I'm someone else unless he has like really bad memory or vision. Because
yeah, she thought I was like legally blind for a while.
I was like, I don't know him. But anyway, that happened for like kind of a long time. And then I was in one of his friends' rooms.
Just hanging out, and I went up to borrow something from him, and just kind of walked in, and they were just hanging out talking, and I was like, oh man, like, and I was like, dude, can I have your whatever? And I just left and went downstairs and like told my buddy, like, you know that girl I've been telling you about? Well, she was like hanging out with Evan, and I was all bummed, thinking like I was complaining like all the good girls are like gone, you know, and like I was coming to the end of this year of like no dating, and I met her and totally unexpected, and I was like, man, well, I guess this is just God telling me like my time isn't done being single.
Which the whole time I was upstairs being like, Evan, what's that guy's name? He's so nice, and he always says hi to me, but I don't even know who he is, and blah, blah. So I got his name for the first time, and Facebook happened. So I Facebook friended him.
Yeah,
and
that night.
Yeah. So anyway, I finally knew him, which was exciting.
One day during summer, I just got it in my head to, just send her a message and see what she was up to, how her summer was going, and, just kind of said hi, and that kind of evolved, and we just kind of talked a few times over the summer.
And every time he messaged me, I remember thinking, like, getting really, really excited and being like, yes, I got a message from him. And being like, no, not allowed to like any guys. Like, don't like him. But I wanted to like him because it was so exciting, but I didn't want to like him because I was too scared. We talked for a long time that summer, just like through, email and message or whatever. And then we ended up moving to school at the same time before the school year started.
Like the same day, unbeknownst to each other, we planned to like move back up to SLO the same day.
So we ended up meeting up. I met him and all his friends, and he met all my friends, and we just had like a bonfire barbecue kind of thing, and we just like hung out a lot.
So it was probably about 3 weeks of just like hanging out, talking to each other a little bit, and I was already kind of sold on the whole thing. I was like, I think this is it. And so about 3 weeks later, we met up in this little loft on campus, and I basically just told her like, this is how I feel.
Okay, hold on. Before that happened, the night, so we had been like hanging out for like a really long time, and I was telling myself like, don't like him, you're not allowed to like him. And I remember one night I went to bed and I just prayed to the Lord, and I said, God, if I'm allowed to like this guy, just give me peace, because I am so afraid of liking someone. And I remember the Lord just gave me this like incredible peace that night, and just saying, it's okay, like I'm giving this man to you, but just love me first, and just I want you to love me first, and I want you to feel my love first before you feel love from a man, but it's okay. And I remember feeling like so so much peace about that. And then the very next day, we had that conversation in that it's a craft loft at our school, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have an answer for you. Like, I actually just prayed about this last night. So it was just like perfect timing. I felt that.
And I obviously didn't know that any of that was going on. I was just like working up the courage for a week to be like, how do I tell her that I like her? Through that conversation, I think we both just really felt unified in the Lord's calling to both of us to not start dating right away. We really had just met each other and talked for about 3 weeks or so, and we both really liked each other, but just through the Lord's calling, we decided that we would basically wait and then kind of check in at the end of the school quarter just to see, like, how are we doing? Is this like something that we want to like pursue? Or, you know, is the Lord calling us apart? And
I remember when he like had that conversation with me, the first thing he said was like, I really like you and I want to pursue you with the intent of marriage, which was kind of a big deal. I mean, we weren't even, I don't know, that was kind of crazy. But I think like when I told him, I feel like I had just prayed and I feel like God had just told me that I need to learn a lot about his love before I can like fall in love with you. He just respected that so much, and I think that was like so, I don't know, it like totally won me right there, because I had never seen a man like respect my walk with the Lord and my decision. We decided not to date, and then we set some boundaries of just like, we can hang out with friends, and we both know that we like each other, and everyone else knows that we like each other, but we won't like woo each other, like, you know, do anything romantic.
Yeah, like I remember no sunsets, which was, took a huge card out of my deck. Couldn't play that.
Because I love sunsets, and I thought it was like too romantic.
But I will say, it was like a really cool period where we didn't really ever hang out, just the two of us. Our relationship really grew around a community of solid believers, and you know, I had my close friends and she had her close friends that were both, you know, keeping us accountable to our relationship, and just, you know, finding wisdom there, and
they like watched us like court basically during that time, which was really neat because we never hung out alone, and so they were able to just give insight to that and just encourage us in it and whatnot. So anyway, that happened for like
a few months,
and then in December, at the end of that quarter, we kind of reevaluated, like, where are we at? We had prayed about it separately, like, do we feel like we should continue and actually start dating now or what? And so we had another DTR, and we both just felt like the Lord was saying, yes, like, go for it, like, you're ready, and like, you know, I'm giving you to each other. Before I had even met him, I remember I was driving home one day, and it was not even like I wasn't praying in the car, nothing. I was just driving home, and I just suddenly felt the Lord, this is gonna be crazy, I suddenly felt like the Lord tell me, like, you cannot kiss on the lips until marriage. And I was like, you've got to be kidding, because I love to kiss, and I am not even dating anyone. I don't even have a guy in mind, so why are you like putting this on me now? But I knew it was from the Lord, and so I was just like, this is crazy, and I feel so like weird saying it, but I told my friends, and they kept me accountable to it. They're like, okay, well, if the Lord told you, like, you know. And so when we had like that DTR, like, okay, we're actually gonna start dating now, I remember I like telling him, and I was like, I am so sorry. I really apologize, but the Lord told me like way long ago that I can't kiss on the lips until marriage.
And I was like, you gotta be kidding.
No, he did not respond. I remember his response was, don't ever apologize for a conviction. Like, from this day forward, your conviction is my conviction. And I was like so touched by that and like blown away that he would just honor me and honor my walk with the Lord and honor my conviction like that. And just the way that he stood by me and respected me, like my purity and my, I don't know, it meant a lot. even throughout our whole dating relationship, just keeping my purity as a priority. And yeah, I'd never seen that before. That was one thing that made me so afraid of guys. And so this just kind of confirmed that, like, God was really blessing me with a man that would keep me whole and just love me really well.
Yeah, and so actually one of the first things that I did in our dating relationship was actually get her a purity ring. She had one, and it, for whatever reason, it had broken. And I knew that for her, that was a symbol of how her purity had been broken in past relationships. And so I was thinking through, like, what should I get her for her birthday, which was like a couple weeks before we actually started dating. And I was like, what can I get her? Like, what's appropriate? And I was like, oh, forget that. I'm just gonna get her a purity ring. And I felt really called to, like, get her this ring, basically as a statement and a symbol that, you know, her purity was whole in the Lord. And so the ring was kind of a symbol of that.
Yeah, and I remember just receiving that. It was, like, super symbolic, and, like, yeah, my purity ring randomly had a crack in it. I don't even know why, but it really was, like, I really felt that way. Like, I still wore it because I wanted to promise that, but I felt like my purity was broken in a lot of ways. And during that time, I had confessed to, like, all my roommates for the first time, and my mentors, and people really close to me, and received, like, not only grace from the Lord and redemption in Him, but also from people. And then I feel like the Lord just, again, gave me Trevor to just show me, like, I'm gifting you with this man who values that and, like, will, you know, show grace to you through me. And it was just a really big moment, and I think that's just something that really won my heart. Again, just his respect for me and his respect for my walk with the Lord, and his just the way he led me to Christ through that. And so anyway, that was, like, a big part of our beginning dating story. And then we dated for, like, a year and a half together in the same city, and then we actually dated a year and a half apart. He felt really challenged by the Lord to lead a trip to El Salvador for a year with a group of college students with Campus Crusade for Christ, and I felt really called a couple weeks later to go to Africa. And so
during this process, we were thinking, like, okay, like, we're gonna have to commit to a year apart from each other, like opposite sides of the world, and then come to find out a couple weeks later that the Africa trip actually started like 5 months after my trip. So it pushed it to a year and a half that we were gonna be apart, and we were just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
But I think one thing that we saw, like, throughout our whole dating relationship was just, like, we prayed a lot. Like, we prayed all the time, and I feel like God really blessed that to, like, align our hearts with everything. And he just, like, continued to show us, like, I don't know, like, it just, he felt called to go, I felt called to go, and we just went, and God bless those times. It was the hardest year and a half apart, like, ever, just because we couldn't see each other, talk to each other, and Skype was the worst thing. I feel like during my Africa trip, I, like, grew into more of a woman of God, and I understood what it looked like to be dependent on him versus him, and like, it was so good. It was hard, but I feel like God prepared me in a lot of ways to be a wife, and I don't know. I feel like he did the same with him, just because he was in a leadership position, and he was, you know, preparing Trevor to lead me in a marriage. And
you know, as hard as this is gonna be, like, imagine how hard it would be to go against what the Lord is calling us to, and, like, I feel like our relationship would have been at risk if we had decided to stay. So, like, as hard as it was to follow that calling, I definitely, looking back, absolutely think it was the best thing that ever happened.
For sure. And we grew a lot in just like little ways, like communication.
Yeah.
Like that's all we had was our words. Like we didn't have touch, or we didn't have, eye contact or anything. And so we had to, like, our words were so intentional. And right when I got back, he proposed.
Yeah.
Which was really exciting because I was so ready.
Ally loves surprises, like lives for surprises. And so I was trying to think, like, I already kind of had the idea of proposing where I had given her her purity ring, which is like on this kind of bluff overlooking the ocean, and it was just like a meaningful place for us. And so I had this in mind, but I knew, like, as soon as she found out that we were going there, she would know. I started telling her, like, that we probably weren't going to get married for, like, a long time.
Which is so rude.
I know.
It was he told me 2 years.
It was bad.
Yeah, he was like, I don't think we'll be able to get married for 2 years. And I cried. I mean, I was like, okay, Lord, give me patience, because I need to trust his leadership, and I need to trust him. Like, I'm not going to be the one proposing, so I just need to trust that his timing is, aligned with the Lord's. But I was like, come on, 2 years? Like, we are obviously ready. Like, we're ready to get married.
It was probably a little too much.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was really believable because I was still in school, and so kind of the excuse was like, we just have to wait until, like, I'm out of school and then we can get married. And so it was hard, but I think it was worth it, right, for the surprise.
So the whole day, we just went to all, like, the places in San Luis Obispo where we, lived.
That was kind of the excuse, so she wouldn't, like, red flag when we went out to the beach if we were going to all these cool places.
And, like, I had been gone for a year and a half in Africa, so I hadn't been to all my favorite places in town. And so he took me to, like, all the favorite, like, my favorite coffee shop, my favorite lunch place, or, like, all the little downtown places. And so I was getting really excited. But for whatever reason that day, everything wedding was, like, sticking out. Like, there was this brand new cafe that just opened up called Honeymoon Cafe, and we were in line somewhere, and all of a sudden there's, like, Real Simple Magazine weddings, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, everything around me is wedding. But I was like, it's okay, just, like, enjoy the day. But anyway, we just spent the whole day, like, hitting our favorite spots, and then we went up to the cliffs, and I still had no idea, because in my head I was all 2 years.
Yeah.
But we went to the cliffs, and he took me off to the edge, overlooking the ocean. We went for a little walk, and he asked me, and he designed the ring that he proposed to me with, and it was actually my grandmother's diamond, who's from Japan. And so she sent the diamond over to my mom, and my mom knew to give it to him when he asked for their blessing. And so that was really special to me. The first thing I said when he proposed was, already?
Yeah.
I thought it was 2 years.
Yeah, he was still kind of under the impression, I don't know why, that we weren't going to get married for a long time.
Yeah. 6.5, 7 months later, we got married. It was like the best day of my life, next to the day I accepted Jesus.
Yeah.
And I, like, look at our wedding photos almost every week because I am obsessed.
It was just a really cool day. It was so overwhelming to realize, like, how God had blessed us with such a huge network of support. People that loved us and were rooting for us. And
even just like our bridal party, like we were saying, like our whole relationship, even before we dated, was surrounded in community. And I think that was just so important for us. Like, our friends were the people that kept us accountable to everything, and our friends were the ones that prayed over us or gave us wisdom, or, they just knew us so well, and they watched our relationship blossom from before, anything had happened up until marriage. And so it was just really meaningful that, like, we were surrounded by a community of friends that cherished our relationship and that had walked us through everything, and that we knew were going to stick through us throughout marriage. And so I think that was just really important to us. And I think I'll never forget our first kiss, because that was on our wedding day.
Yeah.
And it was so weird because it was like the first time, and it was like in front of like over 200 people, so it's kind of weird, but
we got a lot of cheers.
Yeah, but it was so special, I think. And I think I don't know, it was such a good feeling just to feel so, like, I don't know, like we did it, and we honored the Lord through that, and it was a really hard conviction, and I was like, oh my goodness, but it was so good. I just felt like the Lord was so blessed that day, and he blessed us so much that day, and so yeah, and we've been married for a little over a year.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Winning at Love. For more episodes, information, and resources, please visit us at winningatlove.tv. That's winningatlove.tv, not .com. And if you found it helpful, be sure and tell a friend. Thanks for watching, and see you again next time.